Tom Brady retires. I am at least glad that he didn't hold the world hostage by dragging this thing on. There were a lot of places he could have gone and perhaps tacked on another postseason run, but I didn't see a place that was going to be a natural fit like Tampa or Denver for Peyton Manning, in which he could just step in and be the favorite to win the Super Bowl. So, your thoughts on Tom Brady's decision to retire? Travis says it's about time. I tend to agree.
Yeah, I wasn't so surprised. I thought it might be a couple of more years. I think a lot of people think when he retired last year and came out of retirement to come back, I think people think that triggered the divorce with him and Giselle. I think his and Giselle's marriage was already probably on the outs, and he retired to see if he can make it work. And when he realized he couldn't really make it work, that's when he decided to come back. So I think that the way Tom Brady played in that last game versus Dallas, we hadn't seen that Tom Brady before, which is Tom Brady was under a lot of pressure and was making a lot of errant passes because of the pressure, which if you've watched Tom Brady over the past maybe 5 years, he has been making more errant passes when he's under pressure. But now the supporting cast has dwindled from that loaded team in Tampa 2 years ago. And let's just be honest, Dave, Tom Brady was not going to find another situation with a team that was as loaded with future Hall of Famers as that Tampa Super Bowl team was in 2021. I think that it's very similar to when Michael Jordan retired in 98. No disrespect to Michael Jordan, but what people don't realize is the Bulls were not going to be able to keep that team together. And Michael would have been stuck in a rebuild mode if he had come back in 98, 99. And I think it was very similar where there was nowhere Tom Brady could go where he wouldn't have the insane amount of Hall of Fame talent around him that he had when he first went to Tampa 2 years ago.
Well, I think the Bulls could have kept it together, but they didn't want to keep it together. As far as Tom Brady, I wonder, as it affects Peyton Manning's legacy, how will Peyton Manning be remembered 10, 15, 20 years from now? Because if you look at the stats, you're going to see Tom Brady has broken all of Peyton Manning's records. You're going to be able to look at the Super Bowls, and obviously he has had more success. He has that innate clutch thing with him, which to some extent I think is a little bit overblown. I think guys perform better oftentimes in the clutch because they're on the better team. But how do you think this affects at all what Brady has done over the course of his career, how Manning will be remembered? And we remind you to please hit that link button. The thumbs up button allows us to bring in more people. And if you haven't subscribed yet, we need you to do so. So how is Peyton Manning viewed 10, 15, 20 years from now as opposed to Brady and what he did?
Unfortunately, Peyton Manning most people are going to rank him behind Tom Brady all time. They're going to be wrong when they do that. I have staked my claim and I will die on this hill. I'm not saying Peyton will go down as the greatest quarterback ever because I'm seeing Patrick Mahomes might be chasing him too with the way Patrick Mahomes has been playing. But Peyton Manning, I got one stat. I got one stat that just throws every Tom Brady stat you can throw at me out the window. And this is the only stat I need. Tom Brady suffered a season-ending injury in 2008. With a quarterback that hadn't played football, organized football since high school, the Patriots went 11-5 that year. 8 years later, Tom Brady was suspended the first 4 games of the year because of Deflategate. With Jacoby Brissett and Jimmy Garoppolo, the Patriots started the year 3-1. What happened with the Colts the year Peyton Manning went down and was out for the year with an injury? They were 2 years removed from going 14-2 and going to the Super Bowl. Without Peyton Manning, they went 2-14. Like, that is an insane. No team got so significantly worse without Peyton Manning. That's the hill I've always died on. I talk all the time. You know, I used to make these jokes. You know, y'all seen those. Dave, you've seen those Chuck Norris sites, right? You know how great Chuck Norris is. I have made those jokes, but comparing them to Peyton Manning, which is to say stuff like Jesus turned water into wine, but Peyton Manning turned that Colts team into a winner. One miracle's greater.
Yeah, I I would be with you if we were talking about 4 Super Bowls to 2. And I hate the fact that wins and losses is a quarterback stat. I think that's silly. I think the entire team is a factor in each and every win and or loss. And I think to say this guy has won more games than another quarterback is insane. And I don't think there's any question that Brady stepped into a better environment. But I can't, in my mind, rectify. And I wrote a column that'll be on offthehooksports.com later today about how I believe Peyton Manning changed the game as far as the freeze plays and what he did. And I think everybody does that now. And I think Tom Brady even picked up on some of that. Whereas his first Super Bowl, he was just largely along for the ride, like a Trent Dilfer, so to speak. But I can't, in my mind, justify calling one quarterback better than the other. And I get your numbers, but there's no way to me that I can justify 7-2. If it was 4-2, if it was 7-4, I could roll with that. But 7 Super Bowls as opposed to 2 is just a massive, massive difference. And the fact that you have Tom Brady with the incredible comeback against the Falcons, the fact that he won so many clutch games, I do think that there was a clutch advantage there. So I've got to go with Brady, and I really don't think it's even that close. The other thing that I was very impressed about Brady with is, let's face it, Peyton did it his way. He came in. Jim Mora did not like the way he ran the offense because he was essentially the offensive coordinator, so they made a change. And what they did is they let Peyton completely run the offense with the freeze plays that I mentioned. But you've got a guy in Tom Brady that did it different ways. He leaned on Randy Moss. He leaned on the small slot receivers. He leaned on tight ends. He did it a lot of different ways. So I think it's a lot closer than a lot of people will think 15, 20 years from now. But I got to go Tom Brady. I just think the Super Bowl discrepancy is too strong.
Okay, let's talk about the Super Bowl discrepancy for a minute, because I'm willing to go down this rabbit hole. Because, yes, it's not just playing on teams that were better, which we know Tom Brady did.
Yes.
There is also I'm sorry, but there's a luck factor in Super Bowls. And every player has, tons of players have had luck when they've won it. It is kind of unprecedented, the level of luck Tom Brady had. Let me just here's one stat for you, Dave. You ready for this? Before this year, the NFL was sudden death overtime. Even if you scored a touchdown until this year on the first drive, it was still sudden death. Tom Brady, in the playoffs, his teams are 3-0 on overtime coin tosses. Peyton Manning teams are 0-3. You can't that's like a luck factor that you could not. That's insane to have that discrepancy. Then there is the tuck rule, which worked in Tom Brady's favor in his first ring. And funny enough, 11 years later, Peyton Manning had a similar play where he fumbled against the Ravens in the playoffs, and it was ruled against him. So they just kind of reversed course on the tuck rule overnight. I still haven't seen that rule called in anybody's favor ever again. I mean, I watched Tom Brady lose his last game to Dallas 2 weeks ago, which you were watching, I'm sure, as a Cowboy fan.
Yes.
And I was so sure Tampa was going to come back and win because of those missed extra points, because that is the type of stuff that has helped Tom Brady throughout his playoff career. Let's not forget the year we're talking about Patrick Mahomes. I just talked about how I think Patrick Mahomes may end up going down as the greatest of all time. Patrick Mahomes should have 2 Super Bowls right now. Patrick Mahomes had given the Chiefs a touchdown lead against the Patriots in 2018, and Brady was doing a game-winning drive, and he throws an interception. But because a Kansas City player lines up off sides, has no bearing on the play whatsoever, the Patriots stay alive, they score a touchdown, he wins the coin toss in overtime and goes and scores, and Patrick Mahomes never gets a chance to get on the field again. You got me with Brady on a couple of things. I do think Brady has Manning beat longevity-wise. Manning did not do what Brady did this late in his career. I can't take that away from him. I cannot take that away from Tom Brady. No one did what Brady did this late in his career. But to me, that's kind of like, if I were to take it to baseball for a minute, that's like Hank Aaron versus Mickey Mantle and Willie Mays, excuse me. Hank Aaron's the home run king, but everybody who watched baseball in that time knew that Willie Mays and Mickey Mantle were better players in their prime.
True.
Hank Aaron just did it longer. And
No, I agree with that. And I actually give and hit that like button, the thumbs up button, and let me hear on the message board why you think Peyton Manning or Tom Brady are better than the other. And I think it'll be interesting to see, because I know we have a lot of Tennessee fans, what you think, because I understand if you're not 100% objective, who wouldn't want to root for Peyton Manning after all he's done for Tennessee? I actually give, if you want to talk just one Super Bowl by comparison, I give Peyton Manning a lot of credit for, I give him more credit for his last Super Bowl than I do Tom Brady for his. Now, I had a very close friend of the Manning family, and, Cooper had the neck issue, which ended his career in college. Well, they thought it was hereditary and similar what Peyton had, and that at one point before the season in which he sat out and then he went to the Broncos, he literally couldn't firmly grip for a handshake. That's how bad his right hand was. And I was told by a friend of the family that it's probably over. He's probably done at that point. Now, there were reports that he went for stem cell therapy, and I'm sure at his level of an athlete and his level of socioeconomic status, that he gets the best care you can imagine, and he was able to play, and that's great, and I'm glad. But to be able to come back from that, and if you watch the playoffs towards the end, you could see his arm slowly go downhill in the final month and then the playoffs. So I give him more credit for that than any of Brady's individual Super Bowls. Maybe the exception of the comeback against the Falcons, but I got tremendous respect for Peyton Manning. I really do. I can't put him even really on the same level. I think it's Brady and everybody else. I think it's Brady, you drop down, and then you talk about Manning, Montana, Bradshaw, and all those guys. I think it's a totally different level, Caleb. I really do.
yeah, no, I'm sorry. I'm sticking with my guns on this. I'm putting Brady in this. Look, I'm putting them all on an island, to be fair. I don't think Brady's on a separate island. I'm putting them all on an island. By the way, I'm putting Dan Marino on that island. I don't care that Dan Marino didn't win any rings. The only thing I hold against Dan Marino is apparently he never wanted a run game, and he fought against having a run game, and that was to his detriment. But I'm sticking with my guns on this. And to talk a little bit of X's and O's for a minute, I think one of the things that, if we could just bring up some playoff stats, a lot of people don't know this because we talk about clutch genes. Manning is averaging more yards per attempt for his career in the playoffs than Brady is. He actually had a better playoff QB rating than Brady did too for his career until Brady went to Tampa. And I got to be honest, to talk X's and O's for a second, anybody that understands Bruce Arians' offense and understands the receivers that they had, for those who don't understand, Bruce Arians likes to flood one side of the field and go with a vertical attack on one side of the field. Brady was flooding one side of the field with Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, and Antonio Brown. Two of those guys are probably going to the Hall of Fame. If Antonio Brown didn't sabotage his career, he would have gone to the Hall of Fame. So three Hall of Fame talent receivers to one side of the field. It was the easiest vertical attack you could ever do. Even if you had a noodle for an arm, you could have done it. And I think, and by the way, just another one stat, total QBR, that stat came into play in 2006. Brady played 16 seasons with total QBR as a stat. Manning played 9. Manning led the NFL in total QBR 4 times. Brady's only led it twice.
I'll close it with this. I think that Manning had a bigger impact on the game. If I had to select a guy tomorrow, it would be Tom Brady. If I had to create a penthouse in the Hall of Fame in Canton, Tom Brady would be there, and other guys would be around, but he would be center stage.